So beautiful to be together with you all. We'll start, as always, with one of our questions that's come in advance from our online family. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. Can I meditate while I'm taking antidepressants and still progress in my sadhana? This was asked by Rami. Absolutely. You know, everything in our body, including our brain, functions based on chemistry and electricity. It's how our cells work, and whether the cells are neurons in our brain, or whether the cells are cells in our bloodstream, or cells in our liver, or cells in our fingertips, it's all chemistry and electricity. It's how one cell talks to another cell. It's how all of the signals happen. It's how everything in the human body happens. Sometimes the chemistry and the electricity don't function in the ideal way that we'd like them to. Sometimes we play a part in that. So if you lead a very lazy and sedentary type of life, and you eat a lot of fried foods and sweets, and you don't take care of yourself, it's very likely that you will develop diabetes, that your pancreas, that other organs in the body will stop doing what they need to do, stop doing it as well as it should be done, and eventually you're going to have to go on some kind of medicine to control your insulin levels. Sometimes it's type 1 diabetes. Sometimes it's children are born with it. Long before they had a diet, long before they made certain food choices, long before they had any lifestyle choices, they were born with it. So sometimes it's caused by our actions, sometimes it's just, it happens. Similarly, in our brain, there's a whole host of things that can go awry in the brain based on that chemistry and electricity. Again, sometimes it's because of something we've done. Drink a lot of alcohol, take a lot of drugs, and your brain is going to feel very different. Not very comfortable, not like you. In that case, you have to just wait for it to wear off. But sometimes things happen in the brain. Maybe we're born with it, maybe certain life situations have created it, in which the chemistry and the electricity is not functioning in a way that makes us feel settled and calm and able to access happiness. Now, ideally, we use techniques like meditation, yoga, exercise, changing of our mindset, music. I mean, there's so many things that actually impact the brain in a very powerful way and in a very healing way. Changing what we do, changing our setups. But sometimes we need a little bit of assistance. And that assistance sometimes comes in the form of medicines that are prescribed by a doctor, like we have a doctor for the kidneys. If you're suffering, you end up with a psychiatrist, a doctor for the brain. And sometimes they'll prescribe something either for a long period of time or a short period of time to kind of help you get through something. Now again, the drugs are not a crutch. The goal is not, oh, I'm sad in my life because I don't have any meaningful work. I don't have any meaningful connection to God. I don't have any meaningful relationships. Therefore, I'm suffering. Let me just take an antidepressant. That's not what they're for. Or I'm in an awful marriage or an awful job or an awful situation that really needs to be changed. But instead of changing it, I'm just going to medicate myself so that I can live through it. That's not what they're for. That's not the point of life. Or something like, my mom just died, or my dad just died, or I've just gone through a divorce, or my husband or wife just died. I'm full of grief. Well, the medicine is not for that either. Grief is a very natural aspect of human life. It doesn't need to be medicated. It has its own cycle. It'll peak and then it'll slowly start to recede. And that's a process that's actually very healing for us to go through. So in the same way that you wouldn't deal with grief by getting drunk or taking drugs, you also wouldn't want to medicate away, even with prescription medicine, a very deep and important psychological process. But what these medications are for much more is situations in which nothing I do changes how my brain feels. Nothing I do gives me the possibility of experiencing joy. And sometimes we have brain situations like that, or it's a temporary thing. You're struggling in a certain time in your life, or you're struggling to overcome an addiction. Or you're struggling with depression that's so severe that you actually can't get out of bed every day and make it to meditation class. That you can't get out of bed every day and make it to therapy, or make it to yoga, or make it to a volunteer program that's going to fill you with meaning. And so the drugs help to get you out of bed in the morning so that you actually can make it to that which is going to give you more of a permanent solution. So I'm definitely not against the use of medication when it's really needed, and typically when it's for a short term, getting over a hump or overcoming a time in which, and it feels to some people who go through major depression like this, that they just don't have any energy to drag themselves out of bed and do anything. And if a pill can help you, start to meditate, go to therapy, go to yoga, get engaged with some kind of beautiful volunteer seva work, such that after a few months or after a year or two, you no longer need it. Well, that's much better than you spending your whole life in bed or committing suicide or turning to alcohol or other drugs. Where I'm not in favor of it is as that crutch, as in I don't want to look at important things about my life, or I don't want to have to find the courage to make changes in my life or to take steps in my life. Or I'm not really interested in meditating or doing yoga. I just want to, pop a pill and feel better, and this one is legal and prescribed by my doctor. That's not the role for them. But let's assume that our questioner Rami is on the antidepressants for a reason that's important, and that they need to be on them for a little while. Can they meditate? Absolutely, that is the point. The point of this medication is to get you to be able to do things that actually will help you heal from the depression. It's like if you're diabetic, the goal of your doctor, if they're a good doctor, should not be to have you on insulin for the rest of your life. The goal of your doctor is to put you on the insulin long enough so that you don't die while you lose weight, get in shape, and develop better eating habits. It's not, keep eating all those samosas and pakoras and, be super lazy and just watch TV all day long and take this medicine, no problem. It's not what it's there for. It's there to keep you alive and healthy enough that you can exercise, that you can bring about lifestyle changes. And that's true with antidepressants, with anti-anxiety medicine, just as much. Use them if you need them so that you can develop a practice of meditation, so that you can start going to yoga, so that you can go on that spiritual retreat you've wanted to go on, but you just didn't have the energy to sign up. Use them to help you find charitable programs, humanitarian work, wherever you are, that you can get involved in, even if you've got a full-time job and family. You can always find a few hours a week to be getting involved with, whether it's children, whether it's babies, whether it's old people, whether it's sick people, whether it's animals. Reading to people who are blind, coloring with children on a cancer ward, painting the house for a battered women's shelter, or going and spending time with the women, or teaching them a skill. These things actually change how we feel inside. And they change our chemistry. There's tons of research out there showing how meditation, how yoga, how spiritual connection not just makes you feel better subjectively, which in and of itself should be enough, but since we are a science-loving society, we have the science to show that it actually, along with making you feel better, it's actually changing your brain. The chemistry, the electricity, the structure of the brain is changing by that. So Rami, by all means, meditate on the antidepressants, do yoga on the antidepressants. Find yourself a good therapist, not just an MD psychiatrist, but a good therapist who can really help you overcome it. Get involved in some kind of good volunteer work that makes you realize how much you have to offer, how blessed you are, and that reconnects you with the world. Because depression is a disease of feeling isolated. We feel isolated, we feel overly important, and we feel that sort of everything is about us. And Seva pulls you out of that. So absolutely, do the meditation and stay in touch and let me know how you're doing. Beautiful. Questions here? Yes. Come, there's a mic. Up, idhar aayega. Yeah. Come to the mic.
Jai Ganga. Oh, may I ask in any language, right?
Yes.
Question is okay. चूँकि स्पिरिचुअल फैमिली से ही बिलोंग करते हैं एंड पेरेंट्स ऐसे हैं, तो निष्काम कर्म काफ़ी एज, छोटी एज में समझ आया, बट जैसे बड़े होते गए तो डिफ़िकल्ट ये लगने लगा कि बैलेंस कैसे करें, क्योंकि कलयुग है, तो प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ और स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ, क्योंकि कई बार ऐसे होता है कि अंतरात्मा, दिल और लॉजिक एकदम अपोजिट डायरेक्शन में होता है, तो लगता है कि क्या ही डिसीजन लेना चाहिए, फिर कैसे ही निष्काम कर्म की ओर आगे लाइफ बढ़ाए.
Beautiful. So in this Kali Yuga, how do we balance spiritual life with other life? And especially with that logical mind that seems so frequently to go against what our spiritual intuition is telling us. She said, I came from a beautiful spiritual family, followed all of that when I was young. But as you get older, you get under the influence of logic and your responsibilities and things in the world and how to balance them. Well, spirituality does not mean that you must sit 12 hours a day like this in meditation, that you must ignore your duties, ignore your family members. Spirituality doesn't say you can only have one pair of clothes, you must sleep on the floor, you can only use cold water bath. Spirituality doesn't say that. Bhagwan Krishna was king of Dwarka, a city made of gold. So there's no rule that spirituality says thou shalt be impoverished, thou shalt not enjoy your life, thou shalt not have nice things, thou shalt suffer in spirituality. It doesn't say that. What spirituality says is, as you are going through your life, as you're going through your relationships, as you're doing your work, remember me. Mam nu smard yudhyacha. Remember me and fight the war. Yesterday was Gita Jayanti, and this is a beautiful teaching from the Bhagavad Gita. What you could consider kind of a mool teaching, like a very core foundational teaching. Mam nu smard yudhyacha. Very simple. Remember me and fight the war. Now, that was for Arjun, whose duty was to actually fight a war. But for all of us, it's remember me and do your duty. So it's not you must sit here like this all day long because that's the only way you can remember God. Stand up. Do your duty in the world. Have your relationships, have your business, have your this, have your that. Do it all. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say thou shalt renounce everything, especially not at this age, right? I mean, we have ashram stages of life. Nowhere does it say put your spirituality on hold while you do everything. It's all about both. Here in the morning, in the early morning prayers, there's a beautiful line in one of the songs that says, Mukh home ho Ram Nam, Ram Seva Hatme. Let God's name be on your lips, so you're always chanting God's name, but let God's work be in your hands. So it's not just all day long you're sitting here doing your jap mala, but my hands are doing God's work, and my lips are chanting God's name. That's how to do it. Be in the world, absolutely. But remember God. And remember that ultimately the truth of it all is God. So don't get wrapped up in the world. Do it, live it, enjoy it, no problem. But don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. It's like actors forgetting that the role that they're playing is just a role. It doesn't happen. You may be a very bad person in a TV show or a drama, but it doesn't make you a bad person in real life. Right? Actors who play murderers in movies don't go home and kill their families. Because they remember it's just a role, it's just a drama. So in the same way, live the drama, no problem. But remember God. One last piece I wanted to mention, because you mentioned that a lot of times your inner spiritual divine voice and the voice of logic pull you in two different directions. That should not be the case. It means your logic is coming from the wrong place. Logic should never be that pulls us away from our inner voice. Desire might, fear might, sometimes even cultural standards might. Someone else's impact and pressure might, but our own logic never should. You should never have a fight between really your inner guidance and your logic. And if you do, always listen to your inner guidance and figure out where your logic has gone awry. Because it means that your logic is not actually logical. It means you've been sort of co-opted or indoctrinated into believing something that isn't true. For example, we are told in society that happiness comes from having more things. The more things I get, the happier I'll be. So most of our minds, it's this man mange, more situation. But our inner voice knows and yearns for, in many ways, just simplicity, like we want to just give things and get rid of things and be free. So just as an example, in a situation like that, the mind might want more, whereas the inner voice says no. But that's not logic of the mind. That's brainwashed mind. It means your logical mind needs better training. Really. So that you can say, yeah, everybody's saying ki have more, then you'll be happy. But are they happy? Actually, are they happy? Of course not. So your logical mind would say what they are saying is not true. This is a falsehood. So it's time, if you find that your logical mind is going against your inner voice, it means your logical mind needs a little bit more exercise and a little bit more refinement and a little bit more courage to really question the beliefs you've put into it. Because absolutely sometimes desires, fears, all kinds of things pull us away from our inner voice. But logic should not. Wonderful. Other questions? Yes.
Thank you so much. I found that a tendency that when I meet the new people, or sometimes even like, you know, how we're like on Instagram or like other social media and you like just see other people, sometimes my mind gets into the state of comparing myself and starting to underestimating myself.
Yes.
And on top of that, I would start judging these people that I look at.
Yeah.
And deep inside, I don't want to do that. And the question is there, why is this happening? And how to deal with that. And
Wonderful. So this is the downside, the really toxic downside of social media. This is what happens to everybody. You should feel not alone or isolated in this. This is what happens to everyone. It's why the more time you spend on social media, the more depressed you get. It's why, literally, suicide rates and depression rates, especially in young people, have gone up in exact parallel to the rise in the use of smartphones. It's a direct parallel. If you look at graphs over the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, you'll see graphs that go like this. Rates of suicide, depression, and rates of social media and smartphones. And so what we're called upon to do, and this is where logic comes in, is to say, oh my God, the more time I spend on Instagram, the more miserable I am. I guess I'll start spending less time on Instagram. Or I guess I'll stop following. Ay, bati. Ab ja rahe. Ay. Acha, okay, no problem. Wonderful to see you. Wonderful.
I'll come again.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Or I will change who I follow. If you open up my Instagram, which I don't spend very much time at all looking at, but sometimes every once in a while I'll open it up to check something or to respond to something or to see a message or whatever. And your homepage is right there. Now who do I follow? People like NASA, Jane Goodall, right? The space, the telescopes, right? The James Webb, this beautiful, beautiful telescopes that have gone up in space. You open up my Instagram and it's full of pictures of outer space or chimpanzees. Or Good News. There's a wonderful page called the Good News Network. Every day it's some beautiful story of somebody doing something good for somebody else. So we've got a choice. If you scroll and what you look at is everybody who looks happier than you do, because obviously nobody posts pictures of themselves miserable, you're gonna feel badly. It's how marketing has always worked. It's why if you look at any advertisement, forget social media for a moment, take a magazine, take TV, take a billboard. Nobody looks like the models on the billboards. Even the actual models don't look like that. They've spent hours to be made ready to look like that. Then they use all kinds of airbrushing and Photoshop and whatnot to actually make them look better afterwards anyway. But they do it because they know when we see that, we will feel badly about ourselves. Oh my God, I'm so ugly. Gotta have those genes. Because if I have those genes, then I'm gonna look like her. Gotta have that purse, then I'll look like her. Gotta have that car, I'll look like him. I don't feel macho, I don't feel this, I don't feel that. And so they've got some super macho guy in the car and the roof is down and he's driving off into the sunlight. Oh, you don't feel macho enough? Get this car. It's how advertising works. It's the 101 of the psychology of advertising. And social media does the exact same thing. It didn't do it before it became a business. When it really, in the very, very, very beginning, was actually just friends sharing pictures. It didn't do that. But once it became a business and influencers started getting paid, and it became all about money, everything changed. And all the algorithms started being done in such a way that you'll keep looking at it. And after you scroll all of these people who look so much happier than you do, you can be sure there's going to be lots of advertisements for all kinds of things you can buy to look, to feel happier, to feel more beautiful, to feel better about your life. It's all a business. Change how you use it. I'm not saying you have to stop it entirely, but have some control. If every time you eat certain food you feel sick, you'd have to be crazy to keep eating it. Right? Have some control. There's a great story. There's a man who's a beautiful spiritual teacher in California. And he was telling the story about a friend of his who was trying to give up sugar and give up sweets. And the friend said, you know, the problem is there's this great pastry store right where I get off the bus for work. And every day I go into the pastry store and I buy these pastries and I find myself eating them at work. And so this teacher said, well, I have an idea. Why don't you leave your wallet at home? And his friend said, what? You want me to steal them? True story. So I love the story, and he tells the story because the idea of not having the sweets is such an impossibility that, oh my God, if I leave my wallet at home, it means he must be telling me to steal them. Now, even though it makes a funny true story, ultimately, it's a pathetic situation. We must have control over what we eat, what we say, what we do. It's why we practice things like fasting. Not because we'll never eat again, but because it trains us over the tongue, over the senses. In the same way, just because social media exists doesn't mean we have to be slaves to it. Just because there's McDonald's everywhere doesn't mean you have to eat it. You can drive by it. You don't actually have to go through the drive-thru just because it's there. Go through who you follow. Remove everyone who makes you feel badly when you open their page. Follow NASA. It's amazing. Oh my God, whenever I open it, it's so beautiful. Whenever you feel depressed about the state of the world, you see these beautiful pictures of our universe, and it's this daily reminder of the perfection of the universe. You might feel miserable or frustrated about something, and then it's like, here's what our galaxy looks like from this angle. Here's what it looks like from that angle. Here's a new star being born. And it just reminds you the perfection of the universe. So take control over that which you're intaking from social media, just like you take control over what you're intaking in your food. It'll make all the difference in the world. Wonderful. Other questions? Yes, last. Come here. ये mic देना मुझे cordless वाला. Then everybody can see you. Sit down. Yes. Okay. What's your question?
My question is, what is the meaning of Om?
What is the meaning of Om? Beautiful question. So, Om I'm going to just turn that off for you. Now you can play with it. Om is actually the sound of the universe. If you're really quiet, first it'll seem like there's no noise at all, nothing, just total silence. But if you're really, really quiet and you go really, really, really deeply inside yourself, you'll be able to hear Om. It's the vibrational energy of the universe. It is the sound of the energy of the universe. So when you chant Om, you are aligning yourself with that sound of the universe, that power of the universe. It's a very, very, very powerful, powerful sound. And when you chant it or meditate on it, it brings you into that true sound of yourself also. You know, if you plug up your ears, you don't hear anything. You can hear in your own head also. If you're really, really, really quiet, you plug your ears, you can hear that too. So it's the sacred sound and the sacred energy of this universe. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? Yeah? Good. What's your name?
Vaishali.
Tell everybody, what's your name?
My name is Vaishali.
Well, thank you, Vishali, for such a beautiful, beautiful question. Do you chant Om?
Yeah.
Wonderful. You want to chant Om for all of us?
Okay.
Okay. Everybody close your eyes. And let's all chant together with her this time. Thank you.
Welcome.
That was beautiful. And with that, have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And I look so forward to being together again tomorrow.